Hello, everyone. My name is Alexa Height. I am the Scholarly Communication Librarian, and I am also a liaison to the College of Graduate Studies. What we're talking about today is kind of what you need to know as a graduate student, how to access the library's resources, kind of how to make the most of them, and what the library's resources can really do for you as a graduate student. So here I am on the library's homepage. It is library.tamucc.edu. If you are on another university page, at the bottom, you should have this banner here. And if you go over to visitor information, you can visit the Marion Jeff Bell Library website. So what we really want you to come away with is how you can get in contact with the library. Librarians and our staff are here to help you in all the ways that we possibly can. And so if you don't remember anything else, we want you to remember how to get in contact with us. So we have our little Ask Us area where you can chat with us, call us, text us, email us, or find your library liaison. I'm going to go here real quickly, and I just want to explain to you real quickly kind of like a little bit more about what librarians are. So librarians are, especially in academic libraries, we have either what is called a master's in library science or a master's in library and information science. So although I am the one of the two liaisons to the College of Science and Engineering, my undergraduate background is not in areas related to science and engineering. However, I did receive a master's in library and information science, and so I have the skills and knowledge required on how to do library research in the areas of college and science and engineering. So, all librarians might not have a background in the area in which they are liaison to, but we went to school to get a degree to how to do research using library and information. So, here's a way that you can find your liaison to your college, and as you can see, under our faces and what we are the liaison to, we have our emails and our phone numbers. We are available to meet with you for either one-on-one or group help. We are able to help you find resources if you have a topic and you're having trouble finding resources related to your research, or if you don't, you kind of have a vague idea of what kind of research you're looking for, but you don't know how to narrow it down or find something more specific to look into. So that's a little bit more about the Ask Us. If you go into the chat box here, we do again show you all the ways you can contact us and our hours of services. So we do have an FAQ section, so you might be able to find your answer there if you search for your question. But if not, you can always click on this button and chat with us. So going back to the library's homepage, I just wanted to point out to you the Ask Us area, as well as this box in the middle. We have resources for graduate students. And so here, this is just a quick link page to maybe some of the things you might be looking for. So in terms of library spaces, we have computers that are available. Some other things that are going on, we have a link to Grow's website as well. And then things like using the library, placing items on hold, getting items from other libraries, etc. And then in terms of research, you can always ask us. And then databases, research guides, which we'll talk a little bit more about, journals as well, and then scholarly communication. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I am the scholarly communication librarian. And scholarly communication is kind of a confusing title, but it really encompasses the entire life cycle of research all the way through dissemination. So researching a topic, writing a topic, all the way through publication and dissemination. So if you have questions, particularly if you have questions related to copyright or open access, you can definitely contact me. There is some more information on this page. So again, going back to our library's homepage, we've talked about Ask Us. We have resources for you as a graduate student. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about research guides. Research guides can be very basic or they can be very in depth and very helpful. So we do have guides that are related to things going on in the library or around campus. So we have a guide for Hispanic Heritage Month, a guide for Open Access Week, which was last week as of this recording. But we also have our guides organized by subject. And so here, if you are a graduate student in, let's say, biology, and you are, you're generally familiar, but you have your favorite go-to databases, and you want to know kind of what else is out there. You can go to our research guides and kind of go to, okay, how do I find articles related to this? And you might see some databases that you know and love, but you might see some other things that you're not as familiar with or you forgot about in the course of your career. So these guides can be really useful. They can also be extremely useful if you kind of have an interdisciplinary research field or research topic. And so maybe you do know about, one aspect of what you're researching. So if you're, in math, you might know a lot about math, but you might not know so much about teaching math, for example. And so our guides can really help bridge those gaps for you. Again, going back to our library homepage, I mentioned guides. We do have a guide related to COVID-19 and kind of how our services are varied a little bit this semester and this year because of the pandemic. We also have databases, like I mentioned, so you could go to a research guide to find a particular database in a certain subject area, or you can go to our full databases page. If you know the name of the database you're looking for, like Web of Science, something like that, you can search for it here. This isn't necessarily a search bar to ask your question. This is just, do we have this database that I've used before, or how do I get to Science Direct kind of a question. We do have these drop boxes, which can be very helpful as well. So again, you can search by engineering, just give me the databases that are related to engineering. And we have what's called best bets. So these are kind of, a librarian, probably me, has said these are kind of the go-tos for engineering. You should start here, probably. We also have different database types. So if you're doing, let's say, history research or maybe something in sociology, social studies, something like that, and you just want a newspaper. So we have a couple of different options. We have historical newspapers and periodicals, and we also have news and newspapers. So this can be things that happened, news articles that came out today or yesterday, whereas historical is going to obviously be historical newspapers. We also have grants databases. So if you're doing research and you want grant funding, that is a very good resource for you. We also have open access sources. So if you are interested in publishing something open access, you can take a look at what other open access materials are out there. Okay, so that's a little bit about databases. One more thing I will mention is please always access a database from the library's website because our website will authenticate you. If you're off campus, you'll be asked to log in as soon as you click on a database. I'm currently on campus, so it's taking a little bit because it's authenticating me. But if I was just to Google, academic search complete and not go through the library's database, I probably wouldn't be able to log in, and that can cause frustration and consternation for obvious reasons. Okay, so that's a little bit about databases. We've talked a bit about research guides and a bit about databases. So now I'm just going to talk about journals really quickly. So when you're searching in a database, oftentimes the results you get will be journal articles. But if you want to try something different, or if you know of a particular journal that you really like to read and like to and like to keep track of, you can search for that particular journal by title. So, for example, Public Administration Review. Do we have this journal? And I see here's the title of the journal I searched for, and I have access to it. So, something that's really cool about what's called browsing, which is our journal platform, is that you can kind of create your own little journal library. So you can download the app onto your phone if you have a smartphone, and you can subscribe to this journal through TAMUCC. But basically, it's kind of like podcasts. How if you subscribe to a podcast now, you can have every time a new podcast, episode each week comes out, it will automatically download to your phone. You can do that with journals. So you can subscribe to it that way and have them added to your library. You can also look at your particular bookshelf, and your particular individual articles if you log in and sign up. And I would highly encourage you to do that, especially to get familiar. If you are, as a graduate student, you know you're going to be publishing, you know kind of the big names in your area of research, like Cell, for example. You can subscribe to him and then kind of keep track of what's being published and what's going on in your area of study. So that's a little bit about journals. And again, you can also just browse. So if you're not so sure what kind of journals about history there are, you can kind of browse kind of like you would in a physical library or bookstore and find out what's going on there. Okay, so how do we actually get started with library research? I hope you know as a graduate student, but depending on your area of study, or it might have been so long since you were in school that it has been so long since you were in school that library research looks very different now than it did before. Anyway, how do we go about doing research? So, we have this quick search button here, or this quick search area. And this can be very useful, particularly if you're not sure where to start, and you just kind of want to get a basic idea of what's out there. Quick search, I like to tell folks that quick search is like searching Google, except that instead of the entire internet, you're searching what the library has access to, which is still quite a bit, but it's not like searching Google and the entire internet and getting businesses and ads and things like that. But it's not as smart as Google either. So, whereas sometimes I will ask Google a question, just type in, like, why wasn't Julie Andrews in the second Mary Poppins movie? And Google will tell me I don't want to use a full sentence in quick search. So, what we typically use are keywords or terms. So, if I'm doing research on, let's say, sharks and conservation. So here I've put shark with an asterisk or shift 8, and that tells the database that I'm looking for the word shark, but I'd be open to the word sharks, plural, as well. I've put and in all caps to tell the database that I'm not looking for the word and to appear in my results, but rather I'm looking for these two words together. And then conservation, I could do conserve with an asterisk to do conserving, conservation, etc. And you see here, I can refine my results right away, but I'm going to just take a look and I can refine my results or narrow down my results after I hit quick search or hit enter. So as you can see, I have 82,482 results, and these are sorted by relevance. Relevance is an algorithm, kind of like how Google uses it, so it might not be that useful to me, but it's something to keep in mind. So as I mentioned, I can refine my search over here. So I can say I only want peer-reviewed resources, and that takes out things that are not peer-reviewed, and that cut my results down by quite a bit. Can also say, at this point I'm just looking for a journal article. I just want something, short and sweet. Depending on your area of research, you might only want something from the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 15 years. Especially in the sciences, I might only want something from the last 5 years, but if I'm in history, or something else, anything can be of use to me. But as you can see, just by clicking a few things on the left, I've narrowed down from 80 something thousand to 9 something thousand. This is still a lot of results, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and wade through all of this. But if I go down here, I can take a look at subject areas. So maybe I'm looking at zoology, for example, and I can narrow down, or I can look at subject headings. So, subject headings are something that libraries tend to use to organize information. So, somebody at some point went through and read every article and said that 266 of them, they didn't read all 266 of them, but somebody read 266 different articles and said all of these are about aquatic animals. And especially if you don't know where to start your research, or if you, again, are familiar with one aspect of your research but not another, looking through subject headings can be very useful. It can kind of give you an idea of how to narrow things down, or kind of what aspect you're looking at. So you could talk about management, and this might be, wildlife management, something like that. So those are some good ways to narrow down. And in order to actually do that, I would have to click on the check mark if I wanted to include these 289 articles, and I would have to hit an X if I did not want those results to show up in my results list. And then you have to actually click apply at the top. Okay, so once you've narrowed things down, you can kind of take a look at what your results are. So again, if you are off campus, once you click on something in that results list, you are going to be asked to log in if you haven't logged in already. So here I can see the title of the journal, the publisher of the journal. I can actually download the PDF. I can see the figures. I see summary, main text. I have kind of my table of contents here. And if I scroll down, I can actually see a lot of that information as well. Um, Science Direct and some databases will do this where they recommend articles, and so you can kind of browse, virtually browse the shelf that way. Also, something to keep in mind is that some databases will tell you how many articles have cited the article that you're looking at. So, just as once you read an article, if you think it's great, you take a look at their references and you can kind of work backwards through the literature. You can also sometimes, depending on the database, kind of go forward in the literature. So, this article here has been published 105 times, has been cited 105 times in other articles, and so you can kind of take a look at that as well. So that's a little bit about searching in our quick search. Um, just keep in mind there are different source types, content types. You can search by year, subject, um, location. If you're looking for physical books or physical journals, that will appear in these filters as well. So if you've tried to take a look at these things, if you've gone through the research guides, gone through the databases, and you're still stuck, please ask us. And you can do that by chatting with us, calling us, texting us, emailing us, finding your liaison in terms of who to set up an appointment with to do some one-on-one research. Google Scholar is also a place to start. In terms of if you're not sure, if you're having a hard time finding resources, Google Scholar is more narrow than Google itself. but it can also be more broad than what the library has access to. A few caveats with Google Scholar is that Google Scholar might not have full text of what you're looking for, so you might be able to find the abstract, a summary of what the article or book chapter is about, but you might not get the full text access. If that ever happens, if you're searching, whether it's in one of our databases that is not full text, because that happens as well, or you are searching in a database in something else like Google Scholar and you can't get access to the full text. Please don't ever pay for information. You might have come across something, if you want to read this article, you have to pay, $35, $40, something like that. Please don't do that because you are paying for access to information through your tuition. And the library is subscribing to quite a bit of information for you. And if we are not physically paying for it, we can get access by borrowing things such as PDFs from another library. So if you come across something like in Google Scholar, you can do a quick search for it. So let's do Google Scholar. And you can also, I'm going to do my same search. And I got about the same, 85,000. Okay, so let's say, okay, so here it's telling me I can get full text. I can get full text to TAMUCC. Let's pretend I really want this one. I see that I could buy this book. Okay, it's a book. That's cool. But I don't see it myself. I don't have a way to download or access the full text. So you could find it in your library. Some databases and venues will have that. But rather than going through WorldCat like that was showing me, I'm just going to copy the title of the chapter that I want from the book. This is the book title. And I'm going to go back into my library homepage, put quotations around the title because that is the title that I'm looking for. And I see that is this the same thing? Relatives, biodiversity, conservation. Book. Okay. DNA forensic applications in shark management and conservation. Sure. Okay, so this is the same thing. So we can see that I didn't actually have to buy the book because we have this book available online as an ebook and available through a few different sources. So always check the library first, and that is where quick search is actually one of my favorite tools. Is I can quickly, just by putting the title of the article or the book chapter, copying and pasting it into the quick search, I can see pretty quickly whether or not the library will have access to it for me. If the library doesn't have access, what you can do is go to materials not in my library, and we can either request a PDF or a scan of a particular article or a book chapter. In normal times, not the pandemic times, we do also borrow physical print books, and you can request items that way. But because of the pandemic and germs and quarantining materials, many libraries are not participating in physical lending of books. But a book chapter or an article, we can often get a PDF copy for you. The delivery time they say is 1 to 4 days average. This is 1 to 4 business days. I've made requests on a Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon, the PDF was in my email. So never ever pay for material. Okay. Last thing I'm going to talk about is a particular database, which is very useful to look at is a I'm going to talk about a particular database which helps look at if information is peer reviewed or not. So, a lot of times, especially if you're writing your thesis or your dissertation, um, professors want you to use peer reviewed material. This is because peer reviewed material has gone through a review process. And is considered worthy of being published in whatever journal that has been peer reviewed. But how do I know if a particular journal has been peer reviewed? That is where this database Ulrich comes in very handy. And I can search, so I think we saw Cell as an example before. And we can look at the different titles, and we can see Cell Press, the country. Um, Unfortunately, we have to scroll over, but we can see that Cell Press, there are two different versions. One's online and one is print. And then there's Cell Stem Cell, and there is also an online or print version. But if we see over here in this column that says refereed, and it kind of looks like a referee's jersey, all four of these are peer-reviewed or refereed journals. So if you're not sure about a particular piece of information, an article that you found, and you're not sure if it's peer-reviewed or not, this Ulrich's database provides a lot of that information, which can be very helpful. The last thing I want to mention are citation management tools. These are very useful for any writing project, but specifically for long-term writing projects. They can help you with keep track of the resources that you've been using, as well as help you with your citations in the end. So I'm pulling up my Zotero library. Zotero is a citation management tool. It is free. You can download it and you can use the free web app version, or you can download onto your device and have the um, free desktop version. And as you can see over here in my library, I have various things that I'm trying to keep track of. I created one for a class, and this can really help with your thesis or dissertation to keep track of those long-term writing projects and what materials you're using. And you could even organize your folders by chapter or by different aspects of your research. You can also have group libraries and work with others as well, and that is very useful. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this very much can help you populate your bibliography, as well as help you with in-text citation as you're writing your thesis, dissertation, or other project paper. So keep that in mind, and if you have any questions, again, like I've mentioned many times, please ask us if you have questions about anything related to how to find or how to use library resources, questions about publishing, copyright, things like of that nature, open access, anything like that, citation management. The library will not necessarily help, make sure that your citations are fully 100% accurate. We have the Writing Center, which is great for help with that. But in terms of citation management, if you don't like Zotero and want to try something else, please ask us in the library and we can help get you set up with that. With that, I will say thank you for your time and attention.